everybody, Lutcher for Life here, bringing you guys a brand new deck profile. This time around we got Valkyries. I don't remember if I ever uploaded my original build of Valkyries, but I liked that build a lot and it relied heavily on Brilliant Fusion. And unfortunately Brilliant Fusion got limited. But, however, we did get a bunch of really cool Valkyrie stuff, which is, I guess, a trade. So, I will gladly take more Valkyrie stuff over anything for like rogue decks. But anyway, so Valkyrie's got a lot of cool stuff, and I think that the deck has potential to be something really great, especially with more support coming out in Dark Neostorm. We just gotta wait to see what that does. But however, with the current stuff, I think this is a really fun rogue deck to play with your friends or at locals, you know, just to goof off and have fun. Because this deck does have some really good plays that it can do, but I feel like it's just not quite there yet with the consistency. The deck is really missing a really good search card. Well, it has two really good search cards, but it needs a draw card or something. Some way to help it dig through the deck, and without any way to really search out its spells and traps, it gets kind of annoying, but that's just my complaints with the archetype as a whole. But as a fun deck, without taking into consideration the meta, this is a really fun, just casual deck to play with your friends, and I've been having a lot of fun of it myself. So let's get on to with the deck profile. First and foremost, we got, and I'm gonna butcher these names. I know I've gotten relatively good at pronouncing the Nordic names, but these are gonna take a while. Valkyrie Sext? I don't know. If you say it weird, it sounds weird, if you catch my meaning. So, the cute little lolly here, whenever she is special summoned, you can summon any Valkyrie from your deck, except herself, and then once per turn you can mill the top two cards of your opponent's deck. This does two things for the deck. First and foremost, it gives you a combo starter, because a big issue with Valkyries beforehand was if you didn't open right at a Valkyries with a bunch of Valkyries in your hand, you kind of lost. So this way, you have other ways of getting monsters on the field. You have other ways of getting controlling your opponent and doing what they are trying to do and everything. It's really interesting how Valkyries work. They're an OTK deck, kind of, and yet they're also a control deck because they have a lot of ways to just mess around with what your opponent's wanting to do with their deck and everything. So being able to mill the top two cards of your opponent's deck, while at first seeming rather bad, you gotta take into consideration that one of the continuous spells lets you stack your opponent's deck, so you can really just mess with them up. One time I actually put Monster Reborn and a Ghost Ogre on top of my opponent's deck and then milled them off of her. So you can do trolly things like that, and of course also just being able to summon any monster from your deck with no restrictions other than not being able to summon another copy of herself makes her an instant 3-of. Now that being said, you do gotta special summon her to get that effect, but we got a million different ways to special summon, so we don't really have to worry about that too much. Next up we got Valkyrie Vierte, again these names. Vierte here is pretty interesting. I don't think she's gonna stay as a main deck 3-of after the new stuff comes out from Darkness Neostorm or whatever it's called. Because she's very unimpactful, if I have to say. So she's a level 3. The big thing is that she's another normal summon. This deck used to not have any really good normal summons, but she's another normal summon. Basically, whenever she is normal or special summoned, during your main phase, you can just excavate top cards of your deck equal to the number of other Valkyries you control, so upwards of max of 4, unless they get an extra deck monster. So then you can just reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, and then you add one normal spell or trap card from them to your hand, and then the rest go to the graveyard. Otherwise, all of them go back into the deck. This is really good because the deck has multiple ways of getting back its continuous spells and its other stuff, and also just being able to grab your normal spells and stuff like Ride of the Valkyries or so is really good. You don't mind if you mill off your Mistress of the Time Goddess or anything, because again, the deck has ways of recurring stuff from the graveyard, just doesn't have many ways of getting it to your hand from your deck. The other really cool thing about her is that she's basically a giant rat, in that if she dies, you can summon any Valkyrie from your deck to your field. Really good card overall. Again, depending on how this deck shapes up with the new stuff coming out of Dark Neostorm, she might stay as a 3-of, she might be relegated to a 2-of. We'll just have to wait and see, but right now I feel like she's a really good 3-of in the deck. Speaking of really good 3-ofs, we got the Stratos here. Valkyrie Drite. Basically, whenever she is summoned, you can add any Valkyrie card from your deck to your hand. You can only use that effect once per turn, and she gains 200 attack for each of your opponent's banished monsters. The banishing, the attack gain isn't really particularly amazing, but however, it is there, and it is rather nice. especially mid to late game, which this deck tries to stall out to, you can really get a lot of attack on her. Like, it is kind of surprising how high she can get with her attack power. But however, the big thing is, of course, she's a Stratos for the deck. Being able to search out any Valkyrie card, not just monsters, but card, is really, really good. Now, currently, the only Valkyrie named spell or trap card is Rite of the Valkyries. So, generally speaking, what you're mainly going to be grabbing is either that, or Sext to be able to special summon off of like Valhalla or something, or any of the other monsters. But however, generally speaking, you're searching out Ride. Moving on, we got Triple Honest. Even though this deck is technically an OTK deck, it's got rather low attack power, so Honest helps out a lot. Moving on to the 2-ofs, I got Double Brunhild. With the high level monsters, I'm basically playing 2 of each because I feel like 3 starts bricking real hard, especially before all this new stuff came out. But even with the new stuff, it still bricks real hard if you open too many of them, so I'm playing 2 of each to try and calm that down. So Brunhild here is technically the deck's boss monster. She gains 500 attack for every monster your opponent controls. She's unaffected by your opponent's spell cards. And also, if your opponent attacks, you can drop her defense by 1,000, negate that attack. Really good card, just as a bit of a beast. Makes your opponent really have to kind of consider how much they want to summon. And if you summon her while your opponent's got like a big extra link or something, you're going to have a lot of damage. It's very simple. Moving on, we got Valkyrie Erst. Erst is a really interesting monster. She has 2 main effects. Whenever she is summoned, you can add any of your, I believe it is, what was it? Yeah, if she's spell summoned by the effect of a spell from your hand, you can add a Mischief of the Time Goddess from your graveyard to your hand, which is really good. During your opponent's turn, once per turn, as a hard once per turn, you can banish 1 monster from your opponent's graveyard. Her attack becomes that monster's original attack until the end of the turn. And I could have sworn that she also had like a continuous spell thing, or is that one of the others? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, pretty good card overall. Just being able to get back your Mischief of the Time Goddess is the big important thing. So yeah. Next up, we got Valkyrie Zweit. Zweit, basically, whenever she is special summoned, you can pop a monster. It's really that simple. If it's summoned, or sorry, not just special summon, but summoned in general, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls, destroy it. Oh yeah, and then after damage calculation, if this card battled, you can target a continuous spell in your graveyard, add it to your hand. There's that continuous spell recursion. I knew it was on one of these 2. So yeah, Erst grabs back Mistress of the Time Goddess, Zweit grabs back your continuous spells, which is pretty nice. The big thing though is that Zweit destroys a monster, which you actually try to take full advantage of with certain cards, so really good overall, very handy. And then for the last monster I play, 1, Archlord Christia. I was playing 2, but I found that it tends to conflict with the deck too much. The deck wants to special summon a lot, and while Christia gives the deck an alternate win condition, it can also hinder you if you summon him at the wrong time. Christia basically says if you have exactly 4 fairies in your graveyard, you can special summon it from your hand, or I believe it, yeah, exactly 4. While it's on the field, neither player can special summon, and then if it dies, it gets returned to the top of your deck instead of being sent to the graveyard. Really good card overall, very much of a powerhouse, but again, it does hinder yourself too, so you gotta be careful when you summon it. Moving on, we got Ride of the Valkyries. Dun, dun, dun. I can't hum the song, but you know the song I'm talking about. So Ride of the Valkyries basically says special summon as many Valkyries as you want. Might as well say pendulum summon them, let's be honest, from your hand. They are shuffled back to the deck during the end phase, and you can banish it from your graveyard to basically add Mischief of the Time Goddess to your hand. Very, very good card overall. Just basically unloads your hand. Yeah, sure, if you don't activate Mischief of the Time Goddess, or you activate it at the wrong time, you're gonna be screwed over, because then, hey, you're gonna, you know, have everything shuffled back to the deck. But Mischief of the Time Goddess, of course, gets around that, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, really good card. It's searchable off of Drite, I believe, was the level 4, the name of it. So you do want to play as many of this as possible. Next up, we got Goddess Skuld's Oracle as a 3-of. When this card is activated, if all you control is Valkyrie monsters, you can add Goddess Verdandy's Oracle. I keep wanting to call this Beldandy. Those who have watched Oh My Goddess, you get why, but... so anyways, Goddess Gold's Oracle basically lets you call the top cards of your opponent's deck once per turn. If you control, well, actually it doesn't say that you need to have a Valkyrie. Once per turn during your main phase, you can look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, and if you do, place them on top of their deck in any order. But you cannot normal or special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except fairy monsters. You can only activate 1 Goddess Gold's Oracle per turn. Really good card overall, just being able to dig out your deck and deck thin and getting you to your other oracles. The oracles are a backbone of this deck, and it's really debatable on how many you want to play, but Scold I feel like is necessary at 3 because she gets you to the other 2, so yeah. Then speaking of the other one, we got Goddess for Dandy's Guidance. So basically Guidance, if you control, well, when you activate it, if all you control is Valkyries, you can add Goddess Urds or Verdict. So I keep wanting to call them all oracles, but it's Oracle, Guidance, Verdict. So when Verdandi is activated, you get to add Erd, and then once per turn, you can call the name of the top card, sorry, declare 1 type of card. For some reason I thought it was the name. Type of card that's on top of your opponent's deck, reveal the top card of your opponent's deck, and if it was the declared type, they set it to their field, otherwise they add it to their hand. So obviously that's pretty scary, but if you used it in tandem with Scold, you get to know what's on top of their deck, and that means you can pick apart their deck. And then, even more so, Goddess Erd's Verdict. So while this card's out on the field, all of your Valkyrie monsters cannot be targeted by or destroyed by card effects, which is, yeah, very, very scary card right there just alone. And once per turn, you can declare 1 card name and target 1 set card your opponent controls, reveal the set card, and if it was a declared card, banish it. Otherwise, banish 1 card you control. So you can kind of see where this kind of plays together. Scold stacks your opponent's deck. For Dandy, sets that card that you want to get rid of. Erd banishes it. And then you can use Sexte to mill the last 2 cards to really screw over your opponent and prevent them from being able to, you know, draw what they were going to draw, so then you can hopefully mess up their hand. Now, obviously, that can also backfire too, because you might have gotten rid of some cards that they didn't want to draw, and then, hey, that last card on top of the deck, just out of reach of these cards, yeah, that was a card they wanted. That's happened to me before. It's not fun. So yeah, very good cards here. Very handy. Helps with the control aspect of the deck. And because of Mischief of the Time Goddess, you get to do this multiple times and all the while screwing over your opponent. Speaking of Mischief of the Time Goddess, let's talk about Hatsune Miku herself here. So Mischief of the Time Goddess, I'm only playing 2. I was playing 3 just to see it more often, but however, I found with as much search power as the deck has for it and recursion for it, it's not needed at 3. At least not right now. Maybe with the next wave of support, possibly at 3, but right now, 2. So Mischief basically says, at the end of the battle phase, if all you control is Valkyrie monsters, skip your opponent's turn and go straight into your next turn's battle phase. That does all sorts of crazy stuff. So also you cannot activate another copy of it during the next turn or another copy of it and chain to it. This card cannot be activated as chain link 2 or higher to a card. So that is a bit annoying, but however, it does literally make it so you can't activate multiples in succession. So I need to have some balancing, you know? So basically, yeah, that does that. That's very, very screwy. That messes with a lot of game mechanics. It makes it to where traps become live instantly because you are literally skipping your opponent's turn into your next turn. It's not like move the turn count forward. It's not like enter a second battle phase. No, it is skipping through your main phase 2, through your end phase, through your opponent's entire turn, back into your battle phase in the following turn. And that also means, of course, it moves the turn count up 1 and you skip your draw phase, but you don't really care because it's basically letting you to get to attack twice. This also lets you do all sorts of other screwy stuff because it makes it to where traps that you set the turn that you activated this card can now be activated right away. And it also makes it to where you can do all of the once per turn effects of the Valkyries again before your opponent even gets a chance to play. This is really, really, really messing with game mechanics, and I love it. It's really, really cool with what this card does, and it's because of that it's not on YgoPro yet. It drives me nuts. The only way I can test this deck online is freaking through Dueling Book, and I hate it. But anyway, so yeah, really good card. Screws over game mechanics, and it's just so good. I love it. Moving on, we got Soul Charge, like literally, Final Light. pay multiples of, pay life points in multiples of 1,000 to target that many number of differently named Valkyries in your graveyard, special summon them. Then your opponent gets to special summon as many monsters up to the number of monsters that you special summoned from their graveyard, so long as their attacks have 2,000 or lower. So yeah, really good card. It is a bit of a double-edged sword, but with as much you're able to pick apart your opponent's graveyard, you're able to limit how many monsters they can summon, if any at all. Because while yes, they can summon monsters if possible, if they don't have any in there, they don't get any. You do. You're the only one who gets it. It's a really good card. Life points, it is a bit annoying that at minimum it's just a monster reborn that you pay 1,000 life points for, but at max you get a full field of monsters. Generally speaking though, I don't recommend paying more than 4,000 life points for 4 monsters, because you generally want to try and target a Sexday in your graveyard so that then she can summon another monster from your deck, so then that also saves you 1,000 life points for possibly another one if need be, so yeah. Next up, we got Valhalla Hall of the Fallen. This helps you unbrick your hands because, again, we got a lot of high-level monsters. This can also summon Archuleta Christia for free, which is hilarious. This card basically says, once per turn, if you control no monsters, you can just plop a fairy on your field. It's any of them. And of course, all the Valkyries have effects that trigger whenever they're special summoned, except for Brunhild and Vierte, but you know, I digress. So you generally want to try and see this as often as possible. I don't think playing Hecatrice, which searches out this card, is particularly needed right now. Maybe with the next wave of support, I don't know. And also, I'm still testing this out, and I would greatly appreciate any of you guys' ideas, recommendations, or concerns with the deck. So yeah, I've also thought about playing 3, but I found that 3 tends to be cloggy, because if you have multiples, you can't use it multiple times unless you lose your monster on your field, because it's, again, once per turn, just summon a monster if you control no monsters. So yeah. Moving on, Double Monarch Stormforth. This card went to 3, and this deck has a lot of high tribute monsters, so there's no reason not to play this card. The deck doesn't go into its extra deck often either, so you don't really care about being locked out of your extra deck. And even if you do get locked out of your extra deck, if you use Mission of the Time Goddess, you're skipping to the next turn, so you can't use your extra deck again. Ha! Really funny how that works. Finally, Monster Reborn, because, again, special summon crazy as much as possible. If Soul Charge is still legal, I'd also be playing Soul Charge, but, well, it got banned, and, hey, we got an archetypal one, so it's no complaints. And then finally, for the only trap I play 2 copies of Apple of Enlightenment. This card is mean and helps facilitate Final Light in a cohesive sense. So basically what this does is you target cards in your opponent's graveyard up to the number of Valkyries you control, banish them, and if this card is destroyed or removed from the field by an opponent's card effect, I think it actually specifically says removed from the field. Yeah, if this card has left the field because of an opponent's card effect, so even if it gets banished or bounced back to hand, and I don't think it'll trigger if it gets sent back to deck, but that'd be cool if it does. But if it's removed from the field by an opponent's card effect, you get to add any Valkyrie monster from your deck to your hand. That's really good. Now, granted, of course, back row popping isn't particularly, you know, widely seen, but if your opponent does happen to make a Phoenix to pop it because they're not too concerned about the continuous spells, or maybe you set this as a bluff, because, you know, generally speaking, most people will be more concerned with a back row than they will be with a continuous spell. So, yeah, that can trigger and, of course, get you a free search. So, it's really nice, and, of course, you can chain it so you still get the destruction and also the banishing effect. It's really, really nice. I love it. I love how this deck is just so trolly with your opponent and just manipulative. Just lovely. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the extra deck doesn't really matter. You don't really go into it hardly ever, and generally speaking, you would much rather have multiple, I almost called them harpies for some reason, Valkyries on the field as much as possible because, well, of their various effects and stuff, and that's just how the deck plays. And unfortunately, the deck doesn't have an archetypal extra deck monster yet, but I'll show you what I play in anyways. So anyways, first and foremost for a rank 1, because this deck does oftentimes have Sexday out as multiples on the field, Sylvan Princess Sprite, she basically lets you dig through your deck more. You don't care if you mill off a monster because, hey, Final Lights is a thing, and it can potentially add Final Lights or Ride of the Valkyries to your hand, which is always cool. 1 Abyss Dweller for just general negation and stuff. You know, a lot of decks have, like, graveyard effects and stuff. One Fairy Cheer Girl for to draw power. This card is hilarious. I love it. So this card needs 2 level 4 light fairies, or sorry, just any 2 level 4 fairies, not light fairies. You detach and seize material, draw a card. It's literally as simple as that. Just helps you dig through your deck. 1/101 for just general removal. One number 41 Babushka for just general, controlling. It's very nice to be able to do that. One Time Thief for Doer because this thing is a troll and I love it. If you guys don't know what he does, in your first turn, you can detach up to 3 Exceeds materials from him, 1 of each type, monster, spell, or trap card, to do 1 of 3 effects. During your standby phase, your opponent's standby phase, you can attach the top card of their deck onto him as Exceeds material. And basically, if you detach a monster, he banishes himself. If you detach a a spell card, you get to draw a card. If you detach a trap, you get to spin a card back to the deck that your opponent controls. Very, very good card overall. And of course, he comes back during the next standby phase if you detach a monster. So he dodges, he can draw, and he can remove. Just having that much versatility in one card is very, very handy. I love him. He's becoming one of my favorite rank 4s. This isn't even Time Thief like Valkyries. That'd be cool to try out though. One number 61 Focusaurus, because we do have multiple level 5. Well, we have 1 level 5, but we oftentimes have multiple out on the field. One number 24 Dragulus, because I love this card and I don't get to play him enough because there's just not enough rank 6 decks. But basically this thing's a Pokemon that keeps reviving itself. I love it. One Constellar Ptolemy M7. He can recur stuff back to your hand, and of course again, just general stuff like that. One Link Kribo, 1 Hip Hop Singing. I would play 2 if I had to, but I only have 1. I can't seem to get another one for the life of me for some reason. 1 Cerberus for popping, 1 Phoenix for popping, 1 Summon Sorceress for just more summoning, because this card didn't get banned for some reason. And then finally 1 Beauregard Dragon. I know I say this in every video, but if you happen to have Borrelsword or Borreload, play them instead of Beauregard. Beauregard isn't bad, but Borrelsword and Borreload are objectively better, and I just play Beauregard because I don't have the money for Borreload or Borrelsword. So yeah. Thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of this deck? What do you guys think of Valkyries? What do you think they need? That's one of the big things I'm wondering, because honestly I feel like they just need a way to search out their spells and traps a bit easier. And maybe more ways to summon monsters out is always nice for a special summon focused deck too. But yeah, I digress. What do you guys think? Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. And have a wonderful day. Peace.